What? Okay, whatever. Let's get going. All right, good afternoon. Just a note that tomorrow we will be joined virtually by our colleague Rick Pieperkorn, who is the World Health Organization representative in Gaza. That briefing will take place from Gaza, and it will be focused on the polio vaccination campaign and more generally about the health situation in Gaza and what the UN team on the ground is doing. Our Secretary General is in Dili in Timor-Leste to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the popular consultations in that country. Earlier today, he met with President Jose Ramos Horta. In a joint press conference with the President, the Secretary General said the anniversary of the popular consultations called for unity in celebrating the country's past, paying tribute to those who overcame differences by converging in resistance, and in paying tribute to those who dreamed of independence but are no longer with us. Today, less than a generation later, he said, "I'm here as a witness to a nation that has asserted itself and prevailed." He praised Timor-Leste for the progress it has made since independence and urged it to continue in areas like climate action. The United Nations and the Timorese people stood side by side in a time where the country took its destiny in its own hands, the Secretary General said, adding that the UN will continue to support the aspirations of the Timorese people on this journey. Tomorrow, he's scheduled to meet with Prime Minister Jenin Gusmao and will then take part in a live panel discussion with President Ramos Horta and Prime Minister Gusmao, where they will reflect on the 25th anniversary of the referendum. Moving to the situation in the occupied Palestinian territory and most particularly in the West Bank, I can tell you we've been following the developments since this morning with grave concern and are very worried about what we're seeing. Our humanitarian colleagues at OCHA are warning that people there are increasingly exposed to deadly warfare tactics that seem to exceed international standards for law enforcement. Today, at least 9 Palestinians, including children, were killed and others injured in the governorate of Jenin, Tulkarm and Tubas, which is located west of the Jordan Valley. The operations involving Israeli helicopters, drones, and ground forces. Most of the people killed were killed by airstrikes, while others were subject to sniper fire and other lethal means. Military bulldozers have been observed destroying infrastructure with initial indications that damage has been caused to roads and electricity equipment. This resulted in a power outage across the Jenin refugee camp. Israeli forces also conducted operations in close proximity to 4 hospitals, 2 in Jenin and 2 in Tulkarm. Hospitals have been surrounded and all movements in and out of those facilities have been affected, particularly it has affected medical teams. To put this in context, since the 7th of October, more than 630 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. Over 140 of them were killed in about 50 airstrikes, up from 6 fatalities in airstrikes in 2023 before the 7th of October. Most of the fatalities in this period were killed by Israeli forces, but at least 11 were killed by settlers. During the same period, 15 Israelis, including 9 members of Israeli forces, and 5 settlers were killed by Palestinians in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. And in Israel, attacks by Palestinians from the West Bank resulted in the killing of 10 Israelis and 7 Palestinian perpetrators. Our human rights colleagues remind us that in the West Bank, Israeli forces must adhere to international policing standards, where lethal force and firearms are the last resort and can only be used against imminent threat of death or serious injury. Turning to Gaza, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs warned that humanitarian operations are still heavily restricted by hostilities, insecurity, and massive evacuation orders affecting aid transport routes and facilities. Despite these challenges, we and our partners continue to work. And I also want to flag that just yesterday, yesterday evening, a clearly marked UN humanitarian vehicle, part of a convoy that had been fully coordinated with the IDF, was struck 10 times by IDF gunfire, including with bullets targeting front windows. The 2 staff members in the vehicle were thankfully unharmed. But this shows you, I think we had a senior colleague talked to you about the need for armored cars, and this is clearly one where it saved the lives of our two colleagues. This is the latest incident to underscore that systems in place for coordination are not working, and we continue to work with the IDF to ensure that incidents like that do not happen again. We reiterate that parties must respect international humanitarian law at all times. That means that civilians must be protected and their essential needs, including food, water, shelter, and health, must be met wherever they may be in Gaza. This applies to those under evacuation orders, regardless whether they move or not, and those who leave must have enough time to do so, as well as safe routes and safe places to go. Also, just related to the Middle East, you will see this morning the Security Council approved the extension of the UN peacekeeping mission in southern Lebanon by a full year, which is good news. Also this morning, our special envoy for Syria, Geir Pedersen, briefed members via video conference on the situation in Syria. He told members of the council that political process must be Syrian-owned and Syrian-led, but he underscored that this requires the unified and cooperative support of key international stakeholders. On the humanitarian front, the acting Emergency Relief Coordinator and Assistant Secretary General at OCHA, Joyce Masuya, said that the humanitarian needs continue to reach record levels, while hostilities in the north and east and northwest continue to deepen people's suffering, adding that within Syria, 7.2 million people, or nearly a third of the population, are displaced. 9 months into the year, however, less than $1 billion of the $4.1 billion required for the response for Syria has been received. We need adequate funding to continue our humanitarian response. Also this afternoon, the Security Council will hold an open briefing on Ukraine. Assistant Secretary General in the Department of Political Affairs, Miroslav Yencha, will brief on behalf of the Secretariat. Moving to Chad, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that all of Chad's 23 provinces are now affected by floods following heavy rains which started earlier in the summer in June. According to local authorities, 145 people have lost their lives. More than 960,000 people have been impacted, with some 70,000 homes destroyed. Agriculture has, of course, been severely affected. Chadian authorities have also already declared a national food security and nutrition emergency back in February. Nearly 3.4 million people living in Chad face acute hunger. And Chadian authorities, UN agencies, and humanitarian partners are mobilizing and distributing emergency aid, but high waters are hampering delivery. Some affected areas are currently only accessible by canoe. Our partners estimate that they need $64 million to respond to people, to help people affected by the floods. So far, only about 10% of these resources have been made available to us. Response capacity is already severely strained in Chad by the ongoing crisis in the country's east, where large numbers of Sudanese refugees have fled to escape conflict in neighboring Sudan. Across Chad, our humanitarian partners were already working to respond to the humanitarian needs before the floods. The 2024 Humanitarian Response Plan seeks $1.1 billion for aid operations across the country, but is only 35% funded today, at $393 million in the bank. Turning to the nearby Central African Republic, the head of our peacekeeping mission there, Valentin Rugwabiza, attended the 8th coordinating meeting in Bangui on the joint implementation process of the 2019 peace agreement, as well as the joint roadmap for peace in the Central African Republic of the International Conference on the Great Lakes region. At the meeting, Ms. Rugwabiza emphasized that the mission's support addresses several aspects of the peace agreement. As an example, she said the support committees at the prefectural level has significantly contributed to the countrywide efforts in conflict prevention and resolution. She also reiterated that local elections are a critical component of the peace agreement, and efforts are currently underway to ensure that local elections take place early next year. These elections, the special representative stressed, represent a unique opportunity for the inclusion of marginalized groups, especially women, certain communities, long-term displaced people, and those returning from refugee camps in countries neighboring the Central African Republic. Just to flag that the Secretary General has released a message for the International Disability Inclusion Conference that is taking place at UNESCO just ahead of the Paralympics, which are kicking off today. The Secretary General said the Paralympic Games demonstrate the power of sport to unite people across cultures, and that they highlight the potential of the more than 1 billion men, women, and children with disabilities worldwide. Mr. Guterres emphasized the need to overcome barriers to the full and meaningful inclusion of persons with disabilities in sports, through sport, and in all aspects of life. Gabriel.
Thank you, Steph. On the shooting of the UN vehicle, where did that take place?
It took place in Gaza. I don't have the exact location with me, but I will try to get that for you.
And I guess the UN is in contact with the Israeli authorities about this incident, and what are they exactly saying about it?
We're not really getting any answers. We're in contact with them all the time. That's what coordination means. And clearly, the coordination is not working as it should be.
And last follow-up on that, has this incident impacted any of the operations on the ground that you know of so far with humanitarian efforts?
I mean, we continue to do whatever we can wherever we can, but clearly the specific mission these people were on was not able to go through. Maggie.
At the Security Council this morning, the Israeli ambassador, Danny Jenin, said that the IDF destroyed a Hezbollah rocket launcher that was about 150 meters from a UNIFIL base. Has the UN expressed any concern to the IDF about them firing so close to UNIFIL bases? Have you done any démarche or anything?
Our colleagues at UNIFIL are in daily, if not more, contact with the Israelis. I'll have to check if a particular message was passed on that front. The incident took place near Wadi Gaza. Thank you. You're welcome. Oh, Benno.
I will follow up on Gabriel as well. Do you assess this incident with the UN vehicle in Gaza as intentional or coincidental?
We have no way to assess the mindset of those who are shooting at us. We do know that the movement of this particular convoy was coordinated with the Israeli authorities. Whether the information wasn't passed down, whether it was deliberate, whether there was another reason, those are explanations we would like to get.
Do you think that the portrayal of the United Nations as a helper of terrorists in Gaza is kind of boosting in some way or lowering the threshold for violence against UN members?
It's an interesting question. I think we have seen from many quarters pretty direct rhetoric against the United Nations, against UNRWA, against the Secretary General, frankly. Words have consequences. But again, on this particular incident, I can't judge the mindset of those who shot at the UN vehicle, why they did it. But we've expressed our worry and our concern about the language that has been used to demonize the UN. Deji, and then Ibtisam.
A couple of follow-ups also on this incident. First, can you clarify, is this only this one vehicle in that convoy, or there were several vehicles? That's the only one which got shot?
There was only one vehicle that was, I think there were other vehicles in the convoy, but this was the only one that was hit.
So what exactly is the mission there? Do you know?
They were at Wadi Gaza trying to, they were on a humanitarian mission.
We know this is not the first time that the UN vehicles has been shot by Israeli IDF in Gaza, but I think a couple of weeks or months ago, when Secretary General was here, he also confirmed several incidents as well. But is there any investigation Are there any investigations for the previous cases that IDF shot the bullets
The
here?
investigations are in the hands of the Israelis. We
Yeah,
have
but
not-
do you have
we
updated
not-
information?
As far as I know, we've not gotten any.
It's been quite a long time.
Yeah.
So they didn't give any explanations?
I'm not aware of any answer given. I will double check again with our security colleagues, but I'm not aware of any.
Do you expect they will have another explanation for this incident?
You'd have to ask them. Okay. Ibtisam, and then we'll switch topics.
On the same topic, just to clarify, so usually, I mean, your vehicle probably was marked also as a UN.
Yes, clearly. I mean, that logo is probably one of the most recognizable logos in the world, or anyone associated with UN. Derivations of that logo. Yeah.
And if I understood you right, you are saying that that area is under the Israeli army control, and the car was shot by the Israeli army.
That's the information I've received. Yes.
Okay, and then a follow-up on the issue of investigations, but and your answer. It is not clear why aren't you actually investigating all these incidents of shooting on UN personnel and killing.
We are looking into it, investigating it on our end, right? But it's not as we are the victims here, right? It's not as if we have access to those who are shooting at us. So we can determine what happened with the information that we have from our own witnesses and looking at the ballistics of a vehicle that was hit. But in terms of pushing for accountability and investigating from the other end, we don't have any leverage on that side.
Quick follow-up. Do you believe that the Security Council should move in a direction or do something in this regard?
Look, the UN operates in these challenging situations, whether it's Gaza, whether it's in Sudan, whether it's in Chad, whether it's anywhere else, or in Ukraine, in places they're fighting. They don't operate on the whims of Antonio Guterres. They operate on behalf of the United Nations, on behalf of the member states of this organization. It is incumbent on all member states who are part of this organization to ensure the protection of humanitarian workers who work for them, so to speak. Senor.
Steph, on Venezuela, today it's 1 month since the elections, and the UN has called once and again the complete publication of the results, but the Venezuelan government has ignored it so far. Yesterday, President Maduro named the main ministers of the new cabinet, with most of them hardliners, by the way. If the UN fails to recognize the victory of Maduro, can it recognize the legitimacy of the government?
Look, our stand on the need for much more transparency on the electoral results in Venezuela stands. The fact that we have not seen that transparency continues to be an area of concern for us, and we're saying it publicly and we're saying it privately. The issue of the recognition of government is not one for the Secretary General. I think the electoral the panel of experts that went released some information publicly. I think it was very direct. It was very clear. We stand by that information, and I think the fact that you said something very true, that we had asked for the public release by polling station, and that has yet to happen.
And are you in touch with the government in order to push them to?
We continue to I mean, we're as I said, we continue to say it publicly and privately. Bissam.
Just to follow up again on the UN vehicle, so and following up on Ibtisam's question on investigations. So you're saying that you are the victim, so it's more difficult for you to investigate this. So how do you think the UN should go forward to get an investigation, and should there be maybe an independent commission to look into this?
We continue to to press for accountability. I think after this conflict is over, and we hope it's over much sooner than later, there will need to be accountability. There will be boards of inquiry to look at the destruction of UN property, the death of UN personnel, notably our security colleague. So we continue to press for accountability, but our concern right now is twofold, is to deliver as much humanitarian aid as possible and to keep the humanitarian workers safe while they do that work. Let me go to the screen, and we'll go to round two. Mushfiq.
Thank you, Stéphane. How concerning is this for the Secretary General, given that Bangladesh is moving forward stability, but former dictator Hasina, who fled to India, her followers spreading lies and disinformation about US involvement and fake news about attack on Hindu citizen in Bangladesh, stories that have been debunked by the fact checkers from the BBC, AFP, and even the Indian outlet PTI.
I don't have any particular comment on this. Margaret Bashir, Voice of America.
Thank you.
A rookie.
Round two,
Yeah.
couple of follow-ups. Just back to that incident in Gaza with the convoy. Did you mention what agency
I did not.
Could you?
I will not.
Okay.
At this point.
And
I could, but I won't.
do you have any sort of account of how many times UN vehicles have been hit since October 8th?
That we can get. We can get that for you.
And then just one more on Javier's question on Venezuela. Usually the Secretary General writes to newly elected leaders to congratulate them. Given the circumstances and the UN's concerns, will the Secretary General be writing to Mr. Maduro?
I'm not aware of any letter at this point. Gabriel, and then Benno.
Will you release a photo of the vehicle that was hit?
Let me see. I can only ask.
Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Oh, thank you.
And may I ask why you don't want to reveal the agency? I don't understand.
There's still some security concerns at this point. Yes, sir.
Hi, it's Eric with Kyoto. So President Zelensky announced that he plans to present a peace proposal to President Biden. Would the SG like to receive that proposal? Maybe during the
We're
GA?
always interested and curious to see any proposal by any party to bring an end to the conflict in Ukraine. Yeah. You won't let me leave. Deji.
No, I'm just interested in that security concerns. This incident happened in the Israeli-controlled Wadi Gaza. So the security concern is from IDF.
No, from our
No, I mean, from the UN, but it's about IDF.
our concern is to keep our people safe. We're trying.
So there's a
we're-
potential risk that this might happen again. I mean, in the very short future.
There are risks every day, every hour to our staff. We're trying to be as transparent as possible while not sharing information that may make the situation worse for us. Okay. Thank you all. Happy Wednesday. Sorry. Iftikhar, please, I do apologize. Go ahead.
No problem. Also following up on the shooting of UN vehicle, has the United Nations formally protested to Israel on this incident?
Yes, our colleagues on the ground have.
And
Yesterday, I said.
Okay. And secondly, when is the Secretary General's report on the work of the organization is going to be released?
It will be released soon, as it should always be released before just around the GA. I'll get you a date. And that I also want to tell you the Secretary General will have a press conference here 18 or 19. What day? Okay, we will. I 100% understand. We're trying to work around schedules. Okay. I'm glad I shared that information with you. Goodbye.